growing concerns for August 21st. And for today's webinar, we're going to go through a bit of a crops update. We're going to have Anastasia Kubnak on. She's going to be talking about the timing for swathing canola. I've been getting quite a few questions over the last few days here regarding this. Canola is getting closer in some areas, and producers are getting eager, I guess, to get out to the field. So figured it'd be a good timely topic to talk about proper timing for swathing. Also, maybe to address a few of the questions that we've been getting from some of the producers that have gotten some hail damage on some of the crop as well. And I'm also going to talk a little bit today about getting ready for pre-harvest and some of the pre-harvest things you should be looking at for when you're going out to the field, because some pre-harvest has started already, and by this weekend I would imagine, especially in the southwest here, we'll have quite a few more producers doing some pre-harvest. So I guess with that we'll get started with a bit of a crops update here. So I guess basically just to go through some of the crops and just to see where we're sitting. The above normal temperatures from last week here and so far this week have definitely helped bring the crop in and ripen it up throughout excuse me, much of the southwest region over the past week. A lot of the cereal crops are in the soft to firm dough stage of development, and I guess with that some of the earliest fields are going to be receiving some pre-harvest, and that'll probably be going on, if it hasn't started in some areas already, probably by the weekend here we'll be seeing that happening. With the cereal crops, we're definitely seeing some fusarium head blight. It's showing up in most fields. It's not very hard to pick out, so conditions were good for fusarium this year, so I could see where we'll be seeing it in every field. Some of the heads, or a lot of the heads that I've been shelling out, definitely the kernel has shriveled, and which is a good thing, because hopefully it'll go right through the combine, and in that case it won't be part of the sample. So it's a lot of the wheat crop was early this year, and with that maybe we did miss some of the I guess peak time for fusarium to affect the wheat heads. So maybe we'll get away with only having a few heads of the field infected. Canola. Well, canola's this heat is definitely helping because a lot of the later crops, the flowering is definitely slowed down to pretty much stopped, and which was a good thing, because a lot of producers were getting scared that this crop had been flowering for so long already that we might run into some frost issues. So even the later seeded fields now, you could definitely see them all going out of bloom, and mainly because of the heat just stopped the flowering, and now the canola will start to ripen in. A lot of producers, or some producers, have started swathing, and you know, we're starting to see color change in a lot of the seed. So we'll see a fair bit of swathing going on over the next little while here. That's actually a good thing too, because I've been talking to some producers, and they're really key on planting some winter wheat. And I guess with that, getting the canola down right now, and if we got a week to 10 days, you know, some of it might be close to being ready to harvest. So we could maybe see some winter wheat going in. So that would be a good option for producers. Also regarding canola, sclerotinia is showing up in some fields, but the amount of sclerotinia definitely isn't high this year. We're seeing not as high as it was last year, that's for sure. So that's a good thing. And blackleg is starting to show up in some fields, and we're seeing, you know, a fair bit of it starting to show up in some of the hail and wind damage fields throughout the southwest here. So those fields are definitely going to be showing some issues. So with blackleg, again, I think in some of those fields the problem is going to show up late enough that we might not see drastic yield reductions because of the disease. We just are going to see maybe some issues with swathing. Field peas, they're pretty much fully potted right now, and the crop is beginning to turn. We've got some producers that have already desiccated, and some producers that are desiccating shortly here. Again, the crop peas this year looks really good out there, and it has come a long way. Sunflowers, they're liking the heat as well. Most of the sunflowers are fully in full flower right now, and have come on a fair bit since the heat has come on. So definitely good conditions for sunflower. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the soybeans and corn in a couple more slides here. I guess regarding the temperature and growing degree days, just a weekly chart that we've been putting up, and this is for August 12th to the 18th, and some things that we've been keen on throughout the whole year is our growing degree days. And when you look at our growing degree days, we're right in that 95 range to 100. So we're still below the 100. And so we still need a few more days of heat, and being that this only goes to Sunday, it probably hasn't been included, or won't be included in the last few days. So that'll be getting us closer to our growing degree days closer to 100%. Growing heat units, we're getting closer to the 100% as well. So we're just nicely getting into the average. So if we keep getting the heat like they're forecasting, that'll definitely help some of those crops. Rainfall amounts. When you look at our rainfall, we've been getting good moisture throughout the southwest this past year and this year so far, and we're not seeing too many crops suffering because of the lack of moisture. A little bit about soybeans. We talked a bit about them last week, so I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time. Just thought I would maybe just say what stage it looks like we're in, and right now we're probably in that R5 stage, which would be the stage where the pod is filling the pack or the seed cavity in the pod. So if you're able to open up the pod, you'd see that there's a capsule that the pod is in. And as that capsule fills up, we'll go into the R6 stage. So right now we're in the R5 stage, and that would be for a lot of the fields throughout the southwest here. Pods that are looking very similar to this. You can see where the seed is starting to get a little bit bigger, and the pod is definitely starting to show the seed. These are in the upper 3 nodes of the pod, so of the plant. So that's the area we're in. So again, with being in the R5 stage, we probably still going to need 30 days yet before we're up frost-free weather before we can get away without having any major seed damage or yield loss. So they're coming on, but we still need a little bit of time. We were in some soybeans this past week, and we're seeing a purple type color on the leaves, and some of the producers were wondering what it is. And when we were on the tour, they were telling us it was sunburn in the soybeans, very similar to the type of sunburn you would get in the canola crop. And I've got a few slides of canola later on in the presentation. So definitely you can, seeing things happening out there. The plants are looking really healthy, and really not a lot of major issues in the soybean crop. Not a lot of insect issues, so the crop has come on fairly well. With the corn, we're seeing the corn still, the cobs definitely developed a lot since last week. Last week the cobs are only, that 6 inches long kind of range, and just needing the heat like we've been getting to keep developing. Where we're probably in the kind of the blister stage right now of the cob. The cob is filled. If you were to grab those kernels, it's a clear fluid that would come out of them. Really high moisture right now, and when you look at that, it's about 40 to 50 days to maturity or to being in that harvest type situation. So with the corn, we're gaining some time, but again, we still, like the soybeans, we're still going to need a month of frost-free weather here before we'll see any major, or we could get away from any major effects from frost damage. Been getting a couple calls about the spotting on the canola and some spotting on the pods. That'll be alternaria black spot, and with alternaria black spot, you can get some premature ripening of the tissue right around the lesion. So when you look at here and you see the black spots on the pods, what'll happen sometimes is those areas will ripen in faster. They also, when it does get on the pod early enough, what happens is it causes the pod or the seed to shrivel up and not produce a viable seed. So we're seeing some of it this year. We see it pretty much every year. Usually not a very major issue in most crops, but usually very fairly visible when you're out. Producers are out scouting for insects, and when they're starting to see some of this type of damage, and I'm not quite sure if they're seeing insect damage or what's going on. So if you're seeing the black spots like that, and the black spots can be up the stem as well, and but you'll be definitely seeing them on the pods now. I mentioned about the sunburn in canola, and again, very similar in color to what we're seeing in the soybeans. With the canola pod here, if you were to flip this pod over, you can almost see it from the picture, but it's a light green, so the bottom part of the pod still staying a green color, and the top part of the pod is showing the purplish type color. So just usually doesn't cause, or haven't seen it cause, any yield loss or affect any canola quality. It's just something from sunlight. Here's the winter wheat field that we've been following the last, well, I guess all summer here so far, and this was the picture from last week. So this is as of August the 14th, and then this is what the field looks like as of August the 21st. So definitely in a situation where it's getting close to harvest already. I was out in the field and shelled out some kernels, good kernel development, and basically looking like it's getting close to being ready for swathing, or in probably most cases it might have even been sprayed already and not too far off from harvest. So that winter wheat field has definitely come along, and when you compare it to the hard red fields, it is probably going to be 7 days earlier, just from looking at that sample and from looking at some of the hard red fields I've been in over the past week. So I know when we were talking winter wheat this spring, and we were talking about, because of the late start, what was going to happen to some of those fields, and we were talking about winter wheat being maturing the same time as our hard red spring wheats. So the hard red spring wheat's definitely caught up, but the winter wheat looks like it's going to be a little bit farther ahead than the spring wheat. Linda, is Anastasia on?
No, I'm sorry, she's not on yet.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go into some of the pre-harvest things that we should be looking at when we're going to be going out to desiccate some of the crops. And when you look at the sample there that Elmer sent, this one here, probably past the stage where you can still be pre-harvesting it. It's probably that we're just in a situation where this one here is if you try to squeeze the kernels or you do a thumb print into that kernel, those kernels are probably getting fairly hard already. So you know, you can go a little bit earlier. Usually what they're saying is when it's about 30% or less moisture content, 3 to 5 days before you would normally be out there swathing. And you know, usually at that 30% moisture, if you were to look at the kernels, they probably look a lot more like this picture here. A lot of these kernels, if you were to go with your thumbnail, you would leave an impression in the kernel, but you wouldn't. The kernel wouldn't flatten out, or the kernel wouldn't break apart or become doughy or milk come out of it. So that's the stage that you'd be looking at. When you look at the top of the picture, you got this one here that's a little on the green side yet. So this would be kind of borderline being ready to go yet. But if you do go early, what you can do is you can affect these kernels finishing, and you can affect the germination of the seed as well. The other thing is by going, one of the things you got to remember with your application is usually going to take anywhere from 10 to 12 days for the product to work, and so that, basically you're looking at if you're spraying a field that's looking something like this, you're looking at 10 to 14 days before a field like that would be dried down and ready to try to harvest. So I'm not saying at that point it would be dry already, but it would be getting closer to being dry. So 10 to 14 days from pre-harvest application now puts us probably the middle of end of the first week of September. So something to remember if you've got some later crop and you're wanting, or if the weather forecast changes a little bit, and we'll be in a situation where you'll be trying to maybe beat a frost or something like that. Regarding the desiccating and some of the other crops, for the most of your cereal crops, they do go by the thumbnail. So your wheat, barley, and oats, basically, if you want the seed to be in firm to hard dough stage, so that would be something to be monitoring for that. Regarding your application, if you're growing some of the specialty crops, or if you're growing an IP crop for a certain market, definitely be talking to your whoever is going to be purchasing the grain from you. I've had some calls regarding desiccating fall rye. I really make sure that those guys get a hold of the people that are going to be buying the rye from them, because for some markets they definitely don't want to have any glyphosate applied to any of those crops. Regarding flax, we're always looking for that 75 to 80% brown of the bolls. So flax can usually stands for a long time. Any of the other crops, peas, I guess, again, 70 to 80% of the pods are brownish type looking. And always make sure when you open up those pods that the peas can split as you give some pressure to the peas, that the peas will split between your two fingers. And that's probably the, I guess, the few points I wanted to make regarding, some of the desiccating with glyphosate. So I guess with that, Linda, maybe if Anastasia is on right now, maybe we'll go into the when to swath canola.
Okay, thanks, Lionel. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Go ahead. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, so Lionel asked me to talk a little bit about swathing canola. I know there is a lot of questions out there just with how stagey the crop is in a lot of areas. There may be areas that are very, very ripe in the field, and then there could be areas that are still flowering. So this makes it quite difficult to try and figure out which area you should be gauging for your swathing timing. And also, I know a few farmers have been surprised when they've been hearing the Canola Council's message on the radio about swathing at that 70% seed color change. I know I've definitely got a few phone calls on it. So I just wanted to cover a few of those points and hopefully give some ideas of when you're going into a field, some of the things you could be looking for, which might help you with your swathing decision. So I guess just quickly to introduce myself, Lionel said my name, I'm Anastasia Kubanek. I'm the oilseeds crop specialist with MAFRE. I'm based out of Carmen, but I do visit quite a few areas in the province. So in a perfect world, that optimal 60 to 70% seed color change is what we want to target. And the reason for that is there has been a number of trials done both in the North Dakota and Manitoba and Western Canada that says at that 60 to 70% seed color change, we are getting higher yields for our canola, we're increasing our oil content, and we're also getting higher test weight. So when it comes to combining, if you can wait off until those higher seed color change rates, you will see a definite benefit coming into the combine. Now, just to kind of go over what that means, when we do go into a field, what we want you to do is pull a plant, and if you don't want to pull a plant, look at a plant. But try to break that plant out into 3 separate sections. And the area of the plant that we want you to focus on first is that middle main stem. Now, canola will mature from the bottom up, and it matures from the inside out. So that main stem is the one that's probably going to be the earliest out of all of it. It's probably going to have the highest yield, and it is probably one of the best indicators of when you should be swathing. Especially in canola that may only have 1 side branch or 2 side branches. It'll probably be more even than the one that has 5 or 6 side branches, but going for that main branch is still the best indicator. So you want to put it to your bottom third, your middle third, and your top third. Now this is more of an indication, if you're reading through here, of what a 40% seed color change would be. But when we're talking about 60 to 70, I'm going to show you pictures in a second, you would do the same thing. So bottom third, targeting that 60 to 70%, all those bottom seeds will be black. Middle third, kind of in comparison to what they have here, this is for our 30 to 40% seed color change. For 60 to 70%, instead of most of the seeds being green in color, most of the seeds will be green or brown or some black. There will be spots of color in all of them. And in the top third, and this is really where I find to be the most important when you're out there staging, is when you open up those top pods, you want to make sure that those seeds are very firm, that if you are squishing them between your fingers, they are not splitting, or they're not just mushing, they're not very watery. They can roll very easily between your finger and your thumb, and I like to see just a spot of color in there. It doesn't have to be really obvious, not necessarily black seeds, but just a little dot of brown or black in there. So just kind of visual, since I'm more of a visual learner, this is what I really would look for here. So here's your bottom third, here's your middle third, and here's your top third. So in that 60 to 70% range, all of your bottom ones are black. Your middle ones are black to having some seed color change. And your top ones, you probably do have a couple with the seed color change. A lot of them will be fairly green, but dark green. And again, very firm, rolling them in between your finger and your thumb. You're not squishing them. There's not any water in them. And potentially there's the odd little spot of color. So what that would look like with real canola is you want your bottom ones probably to look similar to this, very dark. Your middle ones, you want to be looking at them here. So dark with a bit of green. So here's the pod sample and seed. Again, here pod with the seeds. And then your top ones, I would gauge more for this color here where it's very dark. And you can see with these seeds here, they are very green, but you can't see the odd little spot of color in there. So 60 to 70% is great. There's a lot of benefits to it. But in a realistic world, starting range is you probably want to be starting at 30 to 40% and working up to that 60 to 70%. With a lot of farmers having many, many acres to swath in a very short time, they're honestly, if we do get a hot spell and things do start turning very quickly, there's just not enough time in the evenings and in the early mornings to get all that swathed. So if you can be staging your canola and figuring out which ones are maybe maturing faster than others, if you can target even 40 to 50 so that still those top seeds are very, very firm, that's fine, because we do realize that you're not going to be able to swath every single field perfectly at that 60 to 70%. And some guys aren't comfortable going up that high because you may think that you are going to be shelling. Also, if you have groups of acres, maybe your land is fairly spread apart, and you want to just go into the one farm, say that's 20 miles away from the other farm, and try and get all that canola done. Yeah, we do understand if you are starting at that 40% seed color change, that's fine, but we do want you to try and hold it off as much as you can. Also, the other issues that we do have this year is we have had some hail events roll through, also some weather with some high winds, and we also have some insect damage pods, which kind of can throw a bit of a curveball in there to figure out when it's good to swath. So here I just have a quick diagram. This is looking at more of that 40% seed color change. So in comparison to that 60 to 70%, not all of these bottom seeds are black, black, black. We do have the odd little one that's a bit brown. The middle ones aren't all turned that brown color. We do have a few green ones. The top ones, we will have the odd one that has some of that seed color change, but not as much as what we were in that 60 to 70%. But the big thing to take home here, though, is still those top seeds. You want to make sure that they're still able to roll into your fingers and they're not splitting and they're not watering. If they are watery when you are swathing, you are probably going to lose those seeds because they will just dry up and they'll blow at the back of the combine. So we want to make sure that you have as many seeds as you can that are heavy enough that are going to go into the tank instead of out of the back. Also, we don't want very green seeds in there because that chlorophyll can get locked in, and then when you take it to the elevator, you can be downgraded for the green content. So again, here's our little seed samples. If we're targeting that 40%, whoops, sorry, you probably want those, oh, there we go, those bottom ones still kind of black to this brown here. The middle ones, we would then go to this range where we are very brown to green with a few little spots of color. And then those top ones, we want to make sure that they are fairly dark green, maybe the odd spot of color. We kind of want to stay away from these ones that are green as grass and are a bit watery, so staying away from this. So how to decide when to swath here? Really the big thing is to try and figure out where most of your yield is coming from in your plant. We know that, as I said, the plant will mature from the bottom up and it matures from the inside out. So you want to make sure that you can get as many of those bottom pods as possible with dark seed, because those are probably the ones that are going to be the largest seed. They're going to have the most yield potential. When we have hail, typically we have the damage more to the top than the bottom pods, and the top pods tend to have a bit lower yield potential. So don't necessarily cut to save these pods if the seeds are still watery. As I said, they could just be flying out the back of the combine. Really target still what's going on in the bottom third and the bottom second part of, I guess, the middle third of the plant, and try and gauge still that those seeds are very firm, hopefully mostly black or brown or green with some color change in them. Because once the color change starts in the canola seeds, after you swath it, the enzymes are there and it's still going to turn that seed. It may not have as high a test weight, it may not be as large of a seed if it's just starting, but it's still going to turn, and hopefully that'll cut down the green content, and then those seeds will still stay there. If you are cutting when it is still watery, none of those enzymes are in there, it's not going to turn that dark color, so that green could be locked in, and then it's going to probably dry down too quickly, and those seeds won't have very good test weight and will be potentially going out the back of the combine. So the exception that I have here, and this follows true for insect damage as well, whether it's from the odd little grasshopper nip in there, Bertha, maybe you have some flea beetles and they're nipping at the top of the pods. If the seeds are bruised at the top of the pods but are still firm, so maybe you have a little ding in there from hail or something else, you may want to swath a bit earlier to try and save those, especially if the bottom pods have turned, and then you can stop the top ones from shelling out and you are getting that bottom yield as well. I'm not sure how many producers are in that situation, though. I know some of the hail events that went through were mid to late July and early August. I know there was one here just this weekend too in some areas. But you'll have to assess all of your fields for if you do have that damage, where is that damage on the plants, how firm are those seeds, what color are those seeds in the damaged area, as well as what they look like on the rest of the plant, and then try and gauge when it is the best time to swath. So quickly, that's what my thoughts are on swathing. I hadn't really prepared too much more than this. I don't know if you have people that ask questions, Lionel?
Yeah, actually, Linda, is there any questions right now? Because I have a couple of them. Not.
No, I don't have any questions right now, Lionel. Go ahead then.
Okay, Anastasia, one question that I've been getting is with this heat, how should a producer kind of treat swathing? It's going to dry down in the swath faster, or is it going to, what's going to happen if they are swathing in say 25 to 30 degree weather?
Well, swathing then, there is the potential that those seeds could dry down a bit faster. And if you are swathing at that 40% seed color change versus that 60 to 70, you could lock in some green seeds. I guess the benefit that we have this year, which if you're combining wheat right now is not a benefit, is we do have really heavy dews at night. So the dews are setting in at about 9:30, and then it's still quite wet till 9 o'clock in the morning. So that free moisture in the pods and getting into those swaths will still help that. So hopefully the locking in of that green isn't as much. I know we do talk about not swathing when it's really, really hot out. That's also when we have really low moisture too. So in a situation like last year where guys were having to swath in the middle of the night and then it was still 19, 20 out and there was no dew, there was maybe greater potential then to lock in that green seed count than a year like this year where we still have that heavy moisture overnight.
Okay, and one more question I have for you is some of the producers that did receive some hail damage are thinking about desiccating and then swathing, then strike cutting. Is there, I know that's going to be the critical time as to trying to pick a time for that. I know that's the problem. But is it best to be judging the plants that, if a plant is still flowering right now, it's probably not going to give you anything, right?
Right, yeah. If the plant is still flowering, you're probably not going to get very much out of there. And if you do have situations where you have that regrowth, you still need to kind of go where the majority of your field is at, where you're going to get the most yield out of that field, not necessarily wait for those odd ones that are flowering. Now with the desiccation and the straight cutting, I would caution against the straight cutting if the producer is not experienced with straight cutting and maybe doesn't have the equipment for straight cutting. There can be a lot of issues with straight cutting. I know you'll probably try and get some more seeds, but you can get a lot of shelling out too. If they are interested in straight cutting, I would actually suggest that you maybe get Angela Brackenreed from the Canola Council to talk about that. She has experience with straight cutting straight on her farm, and then some of the ups and downs and things to watch out for. So she'd be a much better one to talk to on that one. And I know there is a lot of watch outs. You want to make sure your crop is well netted. so that if we do get a big wind event, you're not going to get the pods shelling out as they're standing there waiting for the combine to come through.
Okay, and just one question as an aside here. I know you've been doing some surveying for the canola testing there, and for disease. What are you seeing for levels in some of the fields you've been in?
It really depends on the area right now. I've seen a fair amount of sclerotinia north of Portage and in the Swan River region and up towards the park there. So those ones are kind of hot for sclerotinia, also alternaria, just with being a bit wet. Now, blackleg, it is hit and miss in the fields. I'll go into one field that looks fine, and then when I start clipping, I will find blackleg on the stalks when you start looking. It doesn't look like the lesions and the yield loss will be as great as it was last year, mostly because it has been cool and wet, so we haven't had as much girdling on the stem. I think, though, when we get all the numbers in, probably our levels will be very similar to last year and the past years, where we have about 50 to 70% of the crops have some sort of sclerotinia in them, whereas probably only 20% have really noticeable sclerotinia. And then with blackleg, again, I think we'll probably be running in that 60 to 70% of the fields do have blackleg. And again, well, actually this will probably be less, the amount that's in the field and how bad it is in the field. So I think it's a bit better for disease this year, but I myself, I've only probably done about 40 fields for the survey, so I'm not sure. What are you seeing in the Southwest Lionel?
Sclerotinia levels are down, and blackleg I think is going to be down as well, and I don't see the blackleg being an issue for reducing yields. I think it's going to be, it happened late enough, or it's not progressing as fast as it did last year, and so I don't think it's going to be as big an issue.
One thing I am seeing more of this year, though, and I'm sure you are too in the Southwest, is I'm seeing quite a bit of grasshopper damage, and more than I've seen in the past 5 years. Definitely on the edges, and then even going into the middle of the field too, I'll definitely see the odd pods that have been really chewed up by grasshoppers.
Okay, well thanks Anastasia, that was good information, and timely too, because like I said, we've been getting quite a few calls regarding you know, swathing of canola and trying to pick the right time, so that was good information. And about the grasshoppers too, I think I might, if Linda, you want to let me show my screen again, I think I might have a few pictures of some grasshoppers, but I was in a wheat field here a couple days ago now, I guess it is, and we were probably seeing, well, where we were walking, it wouldn't be hard to pick 10 of these off the tops of the heads, and John Gobowski has talked about it a bit on the webinars, and we were at a tour in the Hamiota area on last Thursday, and he was mentioning it again there, and these grasshoppers have a fungus disease that is causing them to crawl to the top of the wheat heads, and they actually die on the top of the heads. And if they're still partially alive, when you go to touch them, they don't jump away. They just kind of sit there. And eventually, what happens is the grasshopper will break open, and the spores will fly out, and that's how they remain in the field. So, but definitely seeing a lot of this in the area. So that's a good thing for getting some natural control of our grasshopper population. Elmer sent me a couple of pictures. This one here is tillage radish. There's been a fair bit of that happening in some areas where guys are looking at some crops for improving soil conditions and improving compaction in soil, and this is 50 days after planting, and so definitely got a good growth on this tillage radish. And I got a question for everybody out there. I got this picture sent to me this week here, and I haven't been able to do a whole bunch of investigating in it yet. So this morning when I was throwing a few more slides together, I figured I'd add it to it. And if you have an idea what it might be, I've thrown out a couple things. Whether it be some type of fungus disease or would it be maybe even aster yellow. Again, just I haven't really spent a lot of time to check it out for sure, so I'll have an answer for you for next week's webinar. But if anybody has any ideas, they can fire it our way. I guess with that, if there's no questions, Linda, that'll be it for the webinar today. And like always, if you're watching the recorded portion of this webinar, we'd like you to write a little bit of, just a little bit of paragraph or two regarding what the webinar is about so you can get your CCA credits. And if you have some questions or if you know what's going on with that we did and you wanted to let us know, if you could send it to the information on the screen there, or your other FPAs in the Southwest and the South Parkland. And I guess with that, if there's no questions, we'll end the webinar for today.
No questions, so.